you're interested in gardening or want to start gardening, come follow me along while I do my garden tours this spring. It's the end of April out here. We are in northern Utah, zone 6B. And this is what I'm doing today. This is a spot that gets morning sun and afternoon shade, and I am planning to plant some onions later. The garden bed, I started this last year, dug it out with a broad fork and then mix some compost with it. But every spring I would suggest that you add a little bit of compost to your garden beds before planting. And this is what I'm doing today. It's called topping off. You only really just need like about an inch or so. I already have some plants planted in here, but I'm topping it off because I'm planting more onions later. And then I barely just pulled out broccoli. This is Brassicas broccoli. It actually grew all winter long and we were able to eat from it early spring, but now since it's a biennial, it's going to flower and I'm already pulling them out. They're kind of getting decimated by aphids, but they're done. And that is a lacinato kale. It also lived through the winter, and I'm also pulling that out as soon as the seeds are ready to be harvested. I usually harvest my own seeds because, you know, seeds that comes from the plants from your own garden, they grow so much better than the seeds that you purchase from the store. And it's so much cheaper that way too. Grow heirloom varieties and you can keep seeds, you can keep getting seeds from those plants like on repeat forever and ever, I think. In most places in North America, we get most of our rains in the spring. This patch right here, a lot of the grass died during the summer last year because we tried to just water specific areas, and some of the areas the grass died. But so whenever there's bare patches in your yard, it is just going to grow weeds. As you can see, there's dandelions. Well, I don't really consider dandelion as a weed per se, but to avoid more of the weeds growing, you have to plant something to cover the bare soil. So earlier in the spring, when we still had some snow around here, I actually took some of my own saved seeds and just broadcasted bok choy. This is what it is. And some arugula. So right now, after the spring rain started to come, the rains actually got the seeds to germinate, and we have something to eat from the garden. Although it's been quite hot, our spring this year was crazy, so now my bok choy is bolting. But even though if we weren't able to make use of this, it will flower and give me seeds for the next rotation. And just like what I mentioned before, spring weather can really be crazy. It can be so hot that my first planting of onions, bulbing onions, most of them died because we hit the 80s. But then we went back to freezing, and then 80s again, and freezing again, and we didn't have any water yet for the yard, and so most of them died. But there's some things that you can plant at this time that would probably be good. Number one, brassicas. The Brassica family is really cold hardy. That would mean your broccoli, cauliflower, kale. Actually, arugula is in the Brassica family. And then I have some little kale planted here. Brassicas really do well when the weather is still pretty cold and wet, because they are sweeter and they grow so much better when the weather is still pretty cold. Now, as you can see here in my chaos garden, garlic and onions also do not mind the cold at all. Although I would say garlic, I planted this in the late fall or early winter. I think it was late November or early December. You just plant cloves in the ground. They will do well over the winter. You don't have to do anything about them. In the early spring, I did add a little bit of compost just to give it a boost of nutrition, and they're doing really good, and I'm hoping that we can harvest them by July, late June or July. Now, onions are also really good for planting in the winter. They don't really mind it, although seedlings are a little bit more sensitive to cold. But established onions like this, I planted all of these onions from onions that look like this in our storage room. When you have onions that are starting to go soft and grow, well, what do? You just plant it. Although you would not be able to get a bulb, a big bulb from an onion like this, you would have a big supply of green onions, and eventually they will put out flower heads like this, and you can save the seeds for planting for next year. There we go. Hopefully it will give us green onions. Another plant that you can plant early on in the spring and doesn't mind the cold at all is potatoes. This probably is a mix of the potatoes that I grew last year, and we just kept it in a storage room all winter long, and then once the day gets warmer, they usually just start sprouting. And once something sprouts, I give it a space in the garden. And so I planted this way earlier, probably in February. I just made sure that when I planted them, I get them covered up with soil. Make sure that they have like about 1 inch or 2 inches of soil on top of it, and as long as it's covered, it will survive the freeze. We've been through 25 Fahrenheit weather, and my potatoes are still alive and now starting to grow really well. Another thing you can start right now are lettuce. Now these I've sown from seed about a week ago. I've kept them upstairs in our living room by a sunny windowsill, and this is how much progress and growth it had done. So as you can see, I've started them at the same time, but different varieties grow at different rates. Now this one, it looks like it's already way ahead, and this one is barely starting off. But then this is about a week's growth, and I'm coming to the greenhouse, and I would also show you the ones that I've started earlier that we are already starting to eat from. Welcome to the greenhouse. I did direct sow quite a bit of lettuce in here earlier, probably around February, when it was still really cold and it was still snow outside. They did germinate quite a bit, but in March our temperature was just all over the place. We hit 80 degrees and we hit 25 degrees Fahrenheit. So a lot of them just shriveled up when they already were starting to grow. But here are some of the survivors, and we are now currently eating from them. Now with lettuce, especially if you only have a few like this, you would want to harvest only the outer leaves. This is what they call as the cut and come again method. So you don't have to take out the whole head. That's what those commercial growers do. But here, it's just your own vegetable garden, you could just harvest what you need and let the plant grow itself more. I am also planning to let this plant grow and flower and produce some seeds for me, so I don't have to buy next year's seeds for planting next spring. For me, one of the definite indication that spring is here is when perennial vegetables start growing. And here I'm showing you my asparagus patch. Now, perennials are probably the easiest vegetables that you can plant, especially if you like asparagus. Who doesn't like asparagus? Because you plant them once and they're gonna give you produce without any effort at all for the next 20-30 years. Now, I planted mine from seed, and this is what I did. This is this year's planting from seed, because some of my plantings from last year died and did not take, so I had to replace it. But this is this year. It was planted in February, and this is how it looks like now. But this I planted last year, and this is how it looks like now. Now, I know a lot of people have seen asparagus that you buy from the store, but this is how asparagus looks like in the garden. That's why sometimes you hear people refer to them as asparagus fruits. This is how it looks like. And they are also one of the very first vegetables that comes up in spring. Another perennial that really would be amazing if you could see the difference is rhubarb. Now, this is the rhubarb I planted earlier in the winter, and it's been growing for about, this is probably 2 months old. And this is the rhubarb that I planted last year. Look at the size difference. Without any effort at all, once you get rhubarb established, this is a perennial vegetable. It just comes back early in the spring and comes out bigger and better each year. Gardening is really something that it just depends on how easy or how complicated you make it. The more you think about it, the more it's going to be harder for you to start. I would say the best thing to do is just use what you have and start right now. I'm Jody, and this is Jody's Garden to Table. Thank you for joining me today. Please like and subscribe if you like more gardening and cooking videos. And if you have questions or certain topics that you want to learn more about, please comment down below.